Hey everybody, this is an update on the strange harassment that's been occurring for me over 20 years. I've been talking online about this for about 6 years, and I'm trying to do an update every couple of months. So the last update I did was on December 28th, 2016, so I'll start there. I've still been hearing loud sounds that coordinate with my movements around the apartment. I know that sounds weird, but in the last video I talked about how one of the inspection people did something to the water heater, and since then it makes this loud abrasive sound, and sometimes it aligns perfectly with things that I'm doing around the house. So for example, it happened again shortly after I posted that last video where the sound occurred in exact unison with the flushing of the toilet. And then on the same day, there were two different sounds on two different occasions that day that coordinated perfectly with me either shutting or opening the door. And by the way, I'm unusually quiet when I open or shut the door. So I don't believe that my neighbors can even hear me when I open or shut the doors. So it would appear that someone is watching me in my apartment in order to coordinate those sounds. Also, in a video that I posted before, I mentioned how a total stranger was telling me things that were going on in my apartment as if to tell me that I'm being watched in my own home. So it's not just me noticing that, it's other people around me. I also mentioned in other videos that my mom has on several occasions repeated back things to me that have occurred in my apartment, which she could not have known. I've mentioned those things in other videos, so I'm not going to go into it now, but it happened again. And this time it wasn't as obvious, but she asked me if I had Wi-Fi, and then right after she left, the Ethernet cable on my computer failed, and I had to switch to Wi-Fi, which I don't like to do because I've mentioned in other videos, someone hacked into my Wi-Fi and deleted my password protection at the other house I lived at, and the neighbors at that other house were repeating back things I had watched on my laptop the night before, like things from a TV series that I was watching that was not something that was on television anymore. It was Twilight Zone. It wasn't on TV anymore. And they were acting out a scene from that show that I'd watched on my laptop the night before, and I was using Wi-Fi. So just recently, my mom asked me for no apparent reason if I had Wi-Fi, which I thought was strange. So I did not answer her, and I just changed the subject. And then she asked me again and again, like maybe 2 or 3 more times after that. And I finally just said, yes, I do have Wi-Fi. And then right after that, on the same day, the Ethernet cable on my laptop stopped working and I had to switch to Wi-Fi. Okay, and then this next incident was really bizarre. I've told you before how sometimes a thought will come into my mind that'll end up being a real event happening somewhere. For example, in my last apartment, a thought came into my mind that said, "We are moving." And then right after that, the neighbors moved out. Well, something similar happened at this new apartment. There was a name that kept coming into my mind. I never knew who it was, but I wrote it down. And then months later, the post office delivered to me a piece of mail that was my neighbor's mail. And the last name was the same name that kept coming into my mind. And I never knew this person's name. I never would have heard it anywhere. So that was another really weird thing. The next thing is there are videos that show up on my YouTube homepage. It's out of my control what comes in, but one time there was a video from an alleged targeted individual, and this woman was dressed like my sister. She was wearing a wig like my sister, and seemed like she was trying to act like her, and she was talking about how crazy her sister was. And she also had this creepy smirk on her face as she was doing it, and she was spreading disinformation about some of the technology that I've talked about on my channel. So it was obvious to me that she was a perp, and I know other targets are aware that most of the people, I would say over 50% at least, over 50% of the people claiming to be TIs on the web are perps whose sole purpose is to discredit the testimony of the TIs. So moving on, the next thing that happened was I was up really late one night. I couldn't sleep. It was about 3 a.m. and I heard the sound of tiny jingle bells near the front door. And I have one of those Christmas decorations that is a ring with jingle bells on it. And I had it hanging on my front door handle. And my front door handle doesn't have a lock on the handle. It only has a deadbolt and other locks that I put on myself. But the handle itself doesn't have a lock. So I realized the next day that the only way those bells could have jingled that night was if someone had turned the handle on my front door from the outside. So it seems that someone was outside my apartment at 3 a.m. on January 12th and turned the handle on my front door. And that really creeped me out. I mean, they can't get in, but I've bought a security camera since then. That also was not the first time. I heard it 2 to 3 other times last Christmas season, and I really don't think it's possible for the wind to blow the door handle. The bells are on the inside. Another time, I was awakened by heavy metal music, but when I turned my head, I couldn't hear it anymore. So maybe that was the audio spotlight, I don't know. But the same day, I was awakened again by loud booms that appeared to be coming from the neighbors. Then I was awakened another day to a loud banging sound that seemed to be coming from where the water heater is, and it was a methodical banging that continued for what seemed like 10 times in a row. Another time I went to get my mail outside, and when I came back and went into my apartment, the neighbor came out and was banging something really loud. And then I went to the bathroom and the neighbor came in and was making loud noises in the bathroom. And then when I opened my laptop, there were strange windows on the screen and it wasn't working right, and it froze or something, and I had to shut it down. And as I said, since then I've purchased a security system. So if somebody comes into my house, they'll be on camera. So I don't know if somebody was coming into my house when I wasn't here. I mean, who knows how many people had the key to my apartment before I moved in here. It's just it's terrifying. It's literally terrifying. But on the same day, I received one of my son's textbooks in the mail. He does homeschool. And when I opened the book, there was a sticker inside with a name. And the first name was a little boy that lived next door to us at the other house. And the last name was Auschwitz. I don't know how to pronounce it, but that Nazi concentration camp in Germany. That was the last name. And the first name was this little kid who was the child of this one neighbor that did a lot of weird things that I've talked about in other videos. And I'm certain in that case that they were involved in the harassment, because she would talk about her investigations and all this weird stuff. There's so much. I'm not going to go into that. There's so much more to that. But anyway, that kid's name and then the last name, Auschwitz, was on my son's textbook when I received it in the mail. Was it a coincidence? I don't know. Maybe I don't know anybody with that last name. So I sort of thought it was, I don't know. I thought it was strange. Next, I had to use Wi-Fi for about a month or so because, as I said, the Ethernet port stopped working on my laptop. And because the perps had hacked my Wi-Fi before, I was paying attention to the names of the other Wi-Fi connections near mine just to see if anything changed. And one day I had a problem with my Wi-Fi connection, and when I looked at the names, I saw the name Sophia along with something else like numbers or something after the name. And it was only there for a second, and then it disappeared, and it had never been there before or after. And it happened when something happened, my Wi-Fi cut out or something. Then after that, another unusual Wi-Fi address showed up that said Bacon. And again, it only showed up once, I think. So it was not one of the regular Wi-Fi titles that were around mine. It was just this new Wi-Fi name that showed up very briefly. Moving on. Some of the conversations that I've had with people over the phone just seem fake. I don't think I have the energy to go into detail about it, but in general, there are contradictions that people make between what they say over the phone and what they do in person. Also, there are some things that are just downright revolting that people are saying to me over the phone. And I'm talking about people I know who I have a hard time even believing that they are saying these things. And I really have to wonder if someone is hacking into my phone conversations using the voice synthesis tech. And I do know for a fact that they have done this at least once. I talked about that in another video. That was over 20 years ago that they said something to me over the phone. I thought I was talking to my mom, and then she said something that I know for a fact my mother would never say. So I know they've used the voice cloning tech on me at least once over the phone. And that technology is not secret. You can find articles about it on the internet. Sometimes it's called voice cloning or voice synthesis. But the conversations are so weird and creepy that at this point, I don't even want to talk on the phone anymore. And the same thing is happening on Facebook. And I feel like Facebook has my profile isolated or something, because in the past, I would post something and not get a single response. I would compliment posts from other people and not get a single response. I would send messages offering to give gifts on certain occasions to people and not get a response. And I mean, my point in saying that is that I wasn't saying anything rude or mean or even controversial, and I just wasn't getting any responses. Some of these people were really good friends. And then occasionally I would get a message from someone who would say that they messaged me and I didn't respond. And then I'd get really creepy, weird posts on my page from people that I just don't think would post something like that. I would also get repeat posts, like my friends were posting the same things over and over, like every week or every couple of months. And then one time, and this is really weird, but I think I told you about the pop-up ads that would show up on Google or YouTube. Well, one time this pop-up ad showed up and it was a picture of a girl in a bikini, and it didn't show her face, but it looked identical to a picture that was taken of me over 20 years ago. And I recognized the picture, but I thought it was just a coincidence. And the caption said something like, "Why you shouldn't post pictures like this to Facebook." And it just stuck with me for a long time, because the picture really did look identical to a picture that I have of me, but I never posted it to Facebook. It's from like 20 years ago. I mean, I barely ever posted any pictures to Facebook. And the few that I did have been deleted. So it occurred to me that Facebook has a separate page for me that someone else is controlling. I mean, I don't really understand how it works, but I really think that someone else is controlling the data and switching it. So for example, you have your Facebook page on your computer and it's coming to you through a server, but someone else, like at a data center or something, is storing what you post to Facebook in a different place and not delivering it to anyone, but instead replacing your posts with something that they post. And you would have no way of knowing if you weren't in personal contact with these people. None of these people on my Facebook page are people that I see in person on a regular basis. They're all people who live in different cities or different states. So they may not do that in the case of, you know, like a close friend that you have that you see in person on a regular basis, but they may just do it for people that they know that you're not in regular personal contact with. I don't know, but I really feel like that's what they're doing, because friends and family act very, very strange to me, as if I've done something horrible. And I've never done anything. I've always been polite in every way. I've always been, you know, I've just never done anything to justify the way they treat me. It is so strange. I will say that in the last 6 years, I've gotten into some controversial ideas. I realize that, and I'm allowing for at least some of it to be the result of that. But the strange behavior has been going on far longer than 6 years. It's been going on for at least 20 years. So it's not due to any controversial stuff that I was talking about, is what I'm trying to say, because they were doing it long before that. But now that everyone's on Facebook, I think it's easier for them to completely destroy someone's relationships with just a push of a button. So I very rarely log into Facebook. I really hate it. I hate Facebook. It's evil. But every single time I do, just like if I need to contact my family about something, every time I do, there's a creepy post right there on my page from somebody that I just don't think would post it. And sometimes it'll have something to do with the harassment. And the other thing is that some of my very good friends behave very differently on Facebook. And I just know, even though I'm not in personal contact with these people, they live in other states, I just know that it's not them communicating with me. I don't want to go into detail about it. I just know. There's one guy who I know is dead who was communicating with me on Facebook. And that wasn't even as weird as some of the other stuff. And I just wonder, like, if I'm getting weird things like that, that I honestly do not think is from these people, because they were really nice, and some of them would post like horror movie clips and stuff, and I'm like, that just isn't, that person is just not like that, and I know it. I feel like if they're doing that with my Facebook page, what are they doing with these other people's Facebook page? You know what I mean? Are they trying to say that I'm saying things that I'm not really saying? So I just think Facebook is evil. I wish I just could get away from Facebook altogether. It's just unfortunate because so much of my family is on Facebook that if I want to contact somebody, that's really like the only way to do it. And unfortunately, at this point in time, nobody believes that it's happening, even though the technology to do it exists and it's no secret. Even the people who claim that they're the leaders of the TI community will never mention that technology. They will never mention the voice synthesis or the voice cloning tech. They will never mention the image technology that I've seen myself. They will tell you there's no way to protect yourself from these attacks. And I'm telling you there is. Aluminized thermal blankets will protect you. You can protect yourself from certain things. I'm not going to say it's every single thing, but if you are being assaulted and you are desperate for help, go get those aluminized blankets. They will work. Go to Less EMF and get one of those caps. They will work if you're having headaches. If you want to know the real truth about what's going on, look at old recordings of people who are now dead, who were murdered. I mean, study their work. I mean, I'm not saying everyone who is dead was talking about the truth, but a lot of them were. This targeting thing goes much, much deeper than what most think. But anyway, there are a few more specific incidents that have happened recently, so let me move on. I told you before how some of the television shows that I watch online seem to be connected to things going on in my life. For example, the name of a character will have my name, etc. I've talked about that in other videos, so I won't go into it now. But something similar happened again. I was watching this television show that I regularly watch online, and on this one particular episode, they were discussing Groundhog Day. And I noticed that I just happened to be watching the TV show on Groundhog Day. But again, it was a pre-released TV show on Netflix. So it wasn't being aired on Groundhog Day. I just happened to be watching that episode on Groundhog Day. An episode that in the script occurred on Groundhog Day. I mean, obviously I can't verify that it was actually in the script, but that's what they said in the TV show. I'm assuming it was in the script. Maybe I'm wrong. But I mean, as you know, on many of the online TV networks like Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu, you can binge watch a TV series. They may either post a TV show episode once a week or the whole season all at once. But if you come to watch it anytime after that, you can watch as many episodes as you want in one day. So there's no way for them to know which day people are going to watch an episode. So for example, if they have an episode talking about Christmas, they may have aired that show on TV on Christmas, But if you're binge watching it online, you may see the episode in the middle of July. So it's highly unlikely that a person who is binge watching an online TV show will end up watching an episode about Groundhog Day actually on Groundhog Day, unintentionally. And that's what happened to me. And it's like the 4th or 5th time that has happened, that something similar to that has happened. I'm telling you, there's something really weird going on with these online TV networks. The odds of that being a coincidence are way out of the ballpark. So either these online networks are somehow able to program things like that into the show after filming is completed, or there's something else going on. There are so many more examples of how I'll be talking about something in my home and then it'll show up on a YouTube video or something. And I guess it's possible that someone's using the audio spotlight on me in order to make me think this is happening when it really isn't. I mean, I guess that's possible. I just don't think that, I don't think I was really paying attention to whether the movement of their lips in the video matched what I heard. I mean, I guess I have to consider the audio spotlight as a possibility. But honestly, I think the truth is much deeper than that, because it isn't always something that I hear. Sometimes it's something that I see. For example, around the time that I kept hearing people in YouTube videos repeating back things that I'd said in my apartment, I also saw in one of the videos the title of a song on one of my YouTube videos. And I mean, I sort of thought it was just a coincidence because there's lots of songs with the same title. But because there were so many other strange coincidences on YouTube around that same time, I counted it in because it was just another weird thing like that. The audio spotlight is real and it's not a secret, but most media will not cover it for some reason. And it's really important. People are being harassed with this thing and they think people are saying things around them, and there's all kinds of horrible things going on and abuse of this technology. But the other thing that they won't tell you is how the audio spotlight can be used in conjunction with the voice cloning technology. So they can cause you to hear someone right next to you say something that they didn't even say. And I sometimes suspect this may be happening. There's only one other person that I know who talked about this, and that was Carla Turner, and she's now dead. So like I said, people who talk about the real truth usually end up dead. Also, I've wanted to believe that at least some of the public harassment is due to the use of the audio spotlight, but I know it doesn't explain everything, because also in the past month, I was mobbed at the grocery store again. There was this one particular day on February 23rd that several strange mobbing incidents happened. First, this older man came up behind me and just stood there frozen. He didn't have a basket or a cart, and he wasn't with anyone else. So it was strange, him just standing behind me frozen. But I just gave him the benefit of the doubt and told myself he must have come into the store for only one thing and that I was in the way. So I just smiled at him and moved on. Then I moved to another section of the store where I was intently making a decision between several products, and a store employee came over with a customer and a couple other people and just were all of a sudden surrounding me on all sides. And the store employee reached right over my cart. And this is a small shopping cart, okay? So she was really close to me. Reached right over my cart to point at something. She didn't even grab something. She was just pointing at it, okay? And talking to this customer. So thinking that I was in her way, I moved my cart so that it was facing the opposite direction and not in her way. And then she walked around behind me and did the same exact thing on the other side. Pointed over my cart. Again, not picking anything up, just pointing at something. It was obvious harassment, okay? And I don't recall either of them actually taking something off the shelf and buying it. And so then because of the harassment, I finally just gave up and I decided to purchase the product online instead and left. And as soon as I moved, they both left the area. I mean, everybody left. You know how it is. You go somewhere, all of a sudden everybody's around you, and then you leave, you check back in the aisle, and there's nobody there. I mean, this stuff is weird. Then I moved to another section of the store, and a woman with a baby came and stood uncomfortably close to me for no apparent reason. I don't remember seeing a cart or a basket, and no one else was with her. She just stood there, didn't buy anything, and then left when I left. So I just kind of, passed it off, didn't really take that one, just kind of was like, I don't know about that one. Then I went down an empty aisle. There was no one there, and I was standing in a certain spot looking for a few products, and the same woman with the baby came and stood so close to me. Her shoulder was almost touching my shoulder. She was like a little bit behind me, but like really close. She just stood like that, frozen. She didn't pick anything up. She didn't buy anything. I didn't notice a cart or a basket. She was uncomfortably close to me, and there was no one else, not a single person in the whole aisle. So I turned and I asked her if I was in her way. And she didn't say anything. She just had this weird smirk on her face. So I just ignored her, and I picked up the products I wanted, and eventually she walked away without buying anything, without picking anything up. She wasn't even looking for a product. It was really obvious. It was like she was frozen, like her eyes were glazed over and she was just frozen. She wasn't even like getting a product. It was almost like she was sleepwalking or something. And I have to think that either these people were not secret shoppers, or they were, and one of the perps told them a lie about me, knowing that I always shop there. I mean, this persecution is literally so bad right now that if you saved someone's life, they would accuse you of murdering them. I mean, I think I've explained before how they tell lies that are polar opposite of the truth. And I noticed this literally decades ago, but I didn't understand why they do it until recently. I think the reason they do that is because people tend to think that there's some amount of truth to any lie. So imagine a circle or a sphere. Just imagine that the top of the sphere represents the truth, and the bottom of the sphere represents the opposite of the truth. So for example, the truth may be that you love cake, and the opposite of the truth is that you are revolted and disgusted by cake. You throw up even at the thought of it. So they will tell everyone around you that you hate cake so much that when your friend made a cake for your birthday, you threw it out right in front of her. So maybe people won't believe that lie. Maybe they'll believe something around that is true. So they may believe that, okay, maybe you didn't throw the cake away, but they might believe that you don't like cake. So now, no matter how much you tell them that you love cake, they'll always have doubt about it. So, I mean, that may not be the best example, but hopefully you get the point. People will usually give leeway. So if the perp told a lie that was halfway between the truth and the opposite of the truth, what you would imagine as the north and south pole of this circle, if they told a lie that was only halfway between the two, then the average person could potentially land at the truth, because most people will give a leeway to anything they hear. They'll usually believe there's probably a little bit of truth to the story. But they're unlikely to go past 90 degrees. They're unlikely to think that the truth is the exact opposite. They're going to think that there's some truth to the lie. They're never going to think that there's zero truth to the lie. So that's why the perps will tell horrific lies in some cases. And not only horrific, but the exact opposite of the truth. The reason is that most people will be left with doubt on the subject and will never reach the truth. They'll never suspect that the truth is the exact opposite of what they were told. So I know for a fact that this is a common tactic among the perps. Discredit the person with lies that are the exact opposite of the truth. So that way, they're never going to join a community that they belong in. You see what I'm saying? So if you really loved animals, let's say you were really kind to animals, they would spread a rumor around you, some horrific rumor that was the exact opposite of that you tortured an animal or something like that. And then what happens? You're never going to be able to meet people that are really like-minded with you, because instead, animal torturing people are going to be then attracted to you. You're going to be surrounded by these evil people that you absolutely detest. They're going to be attracted to you because of these lies, and you'll never be able to get over there and hang out with the people who you really truly are like-minded with. You see what I'm saying? So that's the other reason that they do it. It's the way they isolate you. Okay? So that's why they do it. That's why they tell lies that are the exact opposite of the truth. The first reason is that they know that nobody's going to believe the truth because it's the exact opposite of the lie. Most people are going to think there's some truth to the lie. They're never going to believe that there's zero truth, okay? That's how most people are. They know that. The other reason is that it's going to attract the people that you detest most to come hang around you, which will drive you to suicide, which is what they want. Anyway, back to where I left off. The mobbing at the store that one day. It's not like that every time I go to the store, but as I've said before, it seems to come in waves. But the one thing that was different about that day was that it was the first day that I had set up a security camera in my home. Prior to that, I had no way of knowing if someone was entering my home when I was not there. But that was the first day that I had set up a security system so that I will know if someone comes into my house when I'm not here. So maybe they were particularly upset about that. I don't know. But their harassment was pretty bad that day. One more thing I forgot to mention is that there were 2 separate occasions in the past few months that I believe someone was attempting to move my limbs. The first thing I noticed was when my son did something with his arm spontaneously for no reason, and I asked him why he did it, and he said he didn't know. And the reason it mattered to me was because I was getting the same impulse to do the same thing with my arm for no apparent reason. And I had noticed that impulse on several different occasions for the past few months before I saw my son do it. And so they were not able to cause me to do this thing with my arm, even though I could sense that someone was sending me the impulse. But they're unable to control me because I developed a natural resistance since childhood. Because as I've said before, they've been doing this since I was a very young child. For example, when I was really little, they could make me walk and then turn around in circles over and over again. And that was something I always wondered about. And then one time in recent years, I saw another little kid at my son's daycare doing the same thing. And then I saw a documentary about scientists experimenting on mice using electrodes or something on their brains. And the exact experiment that they were doing was making the mice turn around in circles. So I believe they've been experimenting on me since I was a small child, maybe even an infant, because like I said, I had nightmares about things happening to me when I was an infant. And I developed the ability to resist sometime between ages 7 and 10. And that was when they started using physical assaults on me, which I now believe may be part of their experiments as well. Anyway, they still try to control my bodily functions, and they still cannot do it, at least not the big things like moving my arm. But I recently noticed that shortly before bed, when I'm in bed about to go to sleep, I noticed that my finger was drawing a circle counterclockwise. And for a long time, I didn't think much of it. I just thought my subconscious mind was doing it before I fell asleep. But then my son, my 7-year-old son, did the same thing. In the middle of the day, just randomly came up to me and drew this big, counterclockwise circle in front of me and was kind of joking around about it. But I recognized it immediately as something they I think were causing me to do. just before I fell asleep. And now I think that because they couldn't get me to move my arm, they resorted to something smaller and tried to move my finger. So I really wish it weren't true, but I can't stay silent about it because I know it's happening to more people and most of them will never say anything. Someone is experimenting on people and has been for a long time. Obviously, they don't want anyone to know that this is happening, so they have to discredit people like me who are speaking out. But I really think the targeting is part of these experiments that they're doing. So I just hope that if you're being persecuted, that you're hanging in there. Just know that these prophecies say they are not entirely human, which I think you probably already know. You can probably already feel it, that they're not human. It's not white people, it's not black people, it's not Mexicans. These are non-humans and they can look like anybody. They can look like they're all of a certain ethnic group, but they're not. They are using extremely advanced technology. And you are not alone. So hang in there. I hope you're doing okay, and I will talk to you later.